first, before we get into our interview here, I asked you before the stream if you were comfortable speaking on this, and you said yes.
Yep.
So there's been a little bit of an issue with CEO getting some hate because of the new bill that was passed in Florida. So if I'm pretty sure I'm understanding this correctly, but this horrendous bill that they passed, essentially makes it illegal for a trans person to use a restroom, and it gives people the ability to like just point at someone and say, "Get them out of here." It's very weird. It's very dystopian. But this bill got passed, and it goes into effect, I think, in July. And CEO has been getting a lot of hate because they're obviously in Florida. So it feels like this hatred's a little bit misplaced. What do you think?
Yeah, of course it is. And, you know, there's a lot of bills on transgender rights in Florida being passed simultaneously. A lot of them deal with schools. I think this bathroom one is one of the first ones that we've encountered at the FGC, because the FGC is very LGBTQ. It's very diverse. And I think that the statement that Jabali made CEO made, was warranted. I think the rule specifically is it makes it a second misdemeanor, which is really weird. And also CEO takes place in Daytona, which was every time I've gone, I only went once, and I'm like, okay, I'm literally never going back. It was not a good experience. So now that it's codified in law and enforceable from a government standpoint, I'm like, okay, I don't think that I'll be attending. And I think that one of the main concerns, right, is, well, first of all, to answer your question, obviously he doesn't deserve any hate for this. Like on both sides, I will say, like, just to be totally clear, like Jabali has no control over the laws. He can't really move the tournament at this point. But that's like minor compared to like if you're criticizing what Jabali said or what CEO said. We'll call CEO said. That's super whack. And honestly, like, not like, is that even real? Like, are you really complaining about that? Like, what are you doing? You know, I feel like overall the statement has been, that's a good statement put up by CEO. Like, it's a good thing they did that. And the people that are hating on CEO or Jabali, you know, it's easy to get a lot of hate, I think, and look at the hate that Jabali is getting. But by and large, I think the community is on Jabali's side on this one, on CEO side, excuse me.
Yeah. No, and it's like, I think I saw an issue that very much seems like it's echoing this. And by the way, we have the statement by CEO, and the quote is, "The majority of CEO attendees and staff live in Florida. We recognize our state is problematic for our community, but it's not realistic for us to leave, and we won't give up on the community living here. We're doing our best to create the safest and most fun events we can, and we will continue to communicate directly about concerns with the venues, vendors, and community members we work with to try and craft an enjoyable attendee experience there." And it's so sad because ever since CEO got moved to Daytona, it's that issue where like the venue is great, the location is great, but the people surrounding it outside of like the FGC bubble are problematic, and it's been causing problems. And this was after Jabali signed a 5-year deal with the city, so it's very unfortunate that they're not able to move out sooner. But this reminds me a lot of I think the instant response to throw shade at CEO and Jabali kind of reminds me about the same kind of response that a lot of people gave to the Harry Potter game, where and understandably so, right? I think the trans community is constantly under attack, more so than any other community at this point. And I'm Jewish, so we've been through it a couple times, but like this is happening now. So I think I totally understand like the self-preservation aspect of it, of being like, hey, you don't support us because you're still in Florida. What the fuck's wrong with you? But at the same time, it's like they can't. They can't.
Yeah, they can't. And also, like, it's called Community Effort Orlando, right? Like Jabali started it. He didn't even start it, actually. He picked it up after basically the old TO just run and gun, right, with all the money, from my understanding. Basically, they said, screw it, I'm not running this thing. And Jabali said, no, we're running it, and ran it in like a garage, like a hangar or something. and it's called CEO, and like I think Florida deserves a major for the people that live there, right? In Orlando, Tampa. I lived in Florida for 5-6 years, right? I got the hell out when I smelled shit was going wrong
Yeah.
about 7 years ago. I'm like, this state sucks. I'm out of here, honestly. But like, there's nothing wrong with having a major in Florida, speaking honestly, right? I think that the reality is that like when you have a major in Florida, and especially when you're locked into a deal, like how do you navigate that world of like you need to support transgender people, which Jabali does and CEO does, because the FGC is very LGBTQ plus. But like how do you navigate that waters? And the answer is you can't do it without making some people upset. And I think that CEO is walking the line as best they can, and not even walking the line, they're stepped pretty firmly over the line, right? But they're giving the statements that need to be given, I think. And I feel for Jabali, who has to deal with like things that are completely out of his control, right? And like you can't control the culture of Florida, which is it naturally guides the laws of Florida, right? Like you just can't control it, and it's a shit situation. The only thing we can do is like, yeah, if you're trans, like consider not going, like that's really the best we can do.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate. And yeah, it's like being stuck in between a rock and a hard place, right? That's the saying.
Yeah, and reminder too that CO Taku also is in Florida as well, Orlando, and CO Taku has always been one of my favorite tournaments. This plaque on the wall, let's see, can I point it right? There it is. This plaque is from me helping to run CO Taku back in like 2016 when the first year it was getting live, and like I love that tournament. I actually helped name the tournament. I remember the Facebook thread. I'm like, you should call it CO Taku, and he's like, all right, sure, fuck it, yeah. So I have a lot of love for that tournament, and it would be really hard to give it up. I don't think I'm going to, honestly. Like I still love it, and I'm lucky enough to be like a passing trans person, right? Which is nice. So like I think I'm able to go, but I totally get why other people wouldn't, and like it's a scary situation to be in. It's Jabali's doing everything he can. Honestly, there's not much more he can do, and I'm glad he made this statement.
Yeah, for sure. Now, and like Steve is mentioning, like Florida is not the only place that this is happening, and hopefully sooner rather than later, this trend will stop. And I say trend like I'm diminishing it. I don't mean it that way.
Yeah, it's very much like trans people have been asking for mainstream recognition of like what it is to be trans, and then it's like, oh shit, like like this ain't good. People now know what it means. They're trying to stop it. So nothing you can do but figure out what the hell to do. Like day by day.
Yeah. Well, luckily, like you said, our community, our little bubble, the FGC, is like super welcoming and super. I'm having a really inclusive. Thank you, inclusive and diverse. My word recall has been real bad today. But it's we're trying. We'll try our best
to move
forward.